Welcome to Bening Podcast in the episode of Driving Humanity Forward and the Green Paradox. So today's title is from ICE to EV, Why EV and Why Not, and Transdisciplinary. So why EV and why not is presented by Pak Eko, and in his presentation there are 4 parts, starting from going green and the equitable matrix, simplicity and complexity, altruist, coexist or egoist. The other side of complexity, social and economic impact, the cost of ownership, and how do we accomplish together. So in today's episode, I would like to pick up the data from the first presentation by Pak Eko, that is going green and the equitable matrix. And the data that I would like to pick up is the global greenhouse gas emissions by sector. And as you can see, the biggest contributor to greenhouse gas emission globally is from the energy. In this energy, one of the contributing factor is road transport. So road transport contribute around 11.9% out of 73.2. In order to move from the current situation to a green situation or green condition in transport, we try to make a matrix of what parameter can be used. For example, energy to weight ratio, emission by fuel power source, total CO2, and its comparison also. Again, you can see that energy is actually contributing 73.2% out of global greenhouse gas emission by sector. And it can be divided into 3 big categories. The first is energy used in industry, 24.2%, energy used in transport, 16.2%, and energy used in building, 17.5%. So if we look at this chart and see that actually the road transportation is a contributor, we can say that the road transportation contribution is an impact of the current socio-ecological system, which transport is a subsystem and built upon fossil fuel ecosystem, which is a brown system and not green. You can see that out of 73.2%, road transport contribution is 11.9%. We can say that the moving transport from brown energy generating ecosystem to a green energy generating ecosystem, transport is only one of the subsystems in the social ecological system, but it already presents a complex picture of the issues within, a complexity that requires transformation for its solution. Which brings us to the topic of transdisciplinarity and transdisciplinary, which I would like to touch upon a brief definition of transdisciplinarity that was proposed in 1970 for the first time by Jean Piaget in the interdisciplinary seminar in Paris in the University of Nice. Another definition of is Transdisciplinary work by Kokelmans in 1979. So my understanding, Kokelmans have the same concern with Piaget, but he extends the scope to research and to social. This is based on the statement that he said can be overcome so as to make education and research more socially relevant. So those specialization not only fragmented the discipline but also make the discipline seems like not socially relevant. So that's why Kokelmans come up with this statement. Another is taken from the Charter of Disciplinarity. This is in 1994, and you can see it in the CIRET website. And in this Charter of Transdisciplinarity, one of the preamble mentioned, whereas the present rupture between increasingly quantitative knowledge and increasingly impoverished inner identity is leading to the rise of a new brand of obscurantism with incalculable social and personal consequences. So this is part of the Charter of Transdisciplinarity, which you can see that the preamble is not only one but many, and I take only one. So from those three statements, I would like to highlight the keywords. From Piaget, it would place these relationships within a total system without any firm boundaries between disciplines. From Kokelmans, I think it would be so as to make education and research more socially relevant. And from the Charter of Transdisciplinarity is between increasingly quantitative knowledge and increasingly impoverished inner identity. That I think those statement is mentioning about to learn as an individual and collective about relationship between specialized discipline, about education, research and social relations, about knowledge and identity, or in short about the whole. Which brings us to the next issue, that is complexity, learning and adaptive. Starting from the world is a living system and circular. To survive in the world, we must adapt. Within the world, with the world becoming more interconnected and interdependent, it becomes a complex system. An adaptive process becomes more critical for survival. I quote from Wolf et al. 2019 that mention learning as a core adaptive process for engagement with socio-ecological problems. And also from Ashby's Law of Requisite Variety in 1956, he mentioned that an adaptive system survives to the extent that the variety it generates matches that of the environment it finds itself in. So my understanding of this Ashby Law of Requisite Variety is that you must be at least as complex as your environment in order to survive, or maybe one step more complex. So if you are maybe the same, you cannot survive, you cannot adapt. Here I would like to discuss a model which is based on this book, The Fifth Discipline, The Art and Practice of the Learning Organization by Peter Senge. So in this book, Peter Senge mentioned that reality is made up of circles, but we see straight lines. Herein lies the beginning of our limitation as system thinkers. He also mentioned that we must see the forests and the trees. Not only the forests, not only the trees, but we must be able to see the forests and the trees and the dynamics that arises. And in this book, I mentioned the law of the fifth discipline, and a few I would like to highlight which are interesting is today's problems come from yesterday. Everybody I think knows this. The harder you push, the harder the system pushes back. The easy way out usually lets back in. The easy way out usually leads back in. Sorry. Faster is slower. Cause and effect are not closely related in time and space. And final, that's a very beautiful law. Small changes can produce big results, but the areas of highest leverage are often the least obvious. A truly paradox. The biggest result or the highest leverage are the least obvious. So he mentioned that in order to have systems thinking, there are 4 areas that we must be a master of, or that we understand and we master. That is personal mastery, mental model, shared vision, team learning. And he quite elaborate for those 4 things in his book, which I will not mention here. But I will mention that system thinking is the umbrella concept that encompasses all of this discipline to enable a learning organization to be actualized. It is the understanding of cause and effect are connected, being able to see big picture and patterns in organization, business, and other human endeavor are bound by invisible fabrics of interrelated action, which often takes years to fully play out their effects on each other. So there will be a time delay. And finally, he mentioned this beautiful description of the world in his concept of the indivisible whole. Peter Senge ends his book with the beautiful notion of holism. The universe is not made up of parts to create a whole, but made up of many smaller whole systems that create a large whole. The world, people, nature, objects are animate, balanced, and wholes, so must our organizations. So returning back to this data and the statement that I have said before, I would like to add another final statement. That is, transport is a whole subsystem within the whole energy subsystem within the whole socio-ecological system. That is human relations with nature. So let us start our collective journey, collaborate, co-create, and co-produce. And to do that, we need a model. And one of the model that is very interesting I highlight today is The Dance of Change by Peter Senge also, which he mentioned that there are 3 reinforcing loops for generating change. The first loop is called challenge of initiating. It starts with enthusiasm, then investment in change initiative, then hopefully people will get involved and there will be networking and diffusion and comes back to enthusiasm. Challenge of sustaining is the middle loop, which start with enthusiasm also, investment in change initiative that will have a time delay but will increase our learning capabilities and have a personal result that will increase again to our enthusiasm. And the third loop is challenge of redesign, the outermost loop, which also begin with enthusiasm, investment in change initiative, and learning capabilities that will bring a new business practice, of course with some delay. And this new business practice will have a business result, and again there will be a delay, which leads to credibility and enthusiasm also. So it all starts from enthusiasm and return back to enthusiasm, and the actionable things are investment in change initiative, increasing learning capabilities, and having new business practices. So what are the questions for or of initiating, of sustaining, of redesign? To answer this question, I would like to refer to some information and news. Firstly, again to the presentation by Pak Eko in his episode of Simplicity and Complexity, Altruist, Coexist or Egoist, that Pak Eko quote from 2 giant automotive car makers. The first is Volkswagen. Volkswagen mentioned that even if the role of electric drive gains significance over the coming decade, Volkswagen will continue making vehicles with combustion engines. And from Toyota is a statement from Mr. Akio Toyoda. In achieving carbon neutrality, the enemy is carbon dioxide, not internal combustion. The second is I would like to present a video of the German car automaker progress in the clean energy as follows.
Battery power is ahead in the race to become the car technology of the future, thanks to the likes of Elon Musk's Tesla, but don't rule out the underdog, hydrogen. That's according to major automakers like BMW and Audi. They are just 2 of the firms developing hydrogen fuel cell passenger vehicles as the industry moves away from fossil fuels to meet climate targets. Germany itself has bet billions on hydrogen fuel in sectors like steel and chemical. BMW is hydrogen's biggest supporter among German car makers and aims for a mass market model to be ready in around 2030. Its rivals are also investing. Volkswagen's Audi brand said it had put together a team of more than 100 mechanics and engineers who were researching hydrogen fuel cells for the whole VW group. Hydrogen is also seen as a sure bet by top truck makers like Daimler and Volvo, who see batteries as too heavy for long-distance commercial vehicles. For now though, fuel cell technology is expensive, making the production of mass-market cars a challenge. The cells, where hydrogen passes through a catalyst to produce electricity, are complex and contain expensive materials. VW Group CEO Herbert Diess has tweeted that it isn't the solution to climate change. But Toyota takes a different view. It already has a fuel cell car on sale, though it remains a niche market. European General Manager Stephen Herbst says both battery electric cars and hydrogen could progress side by side. Herbst is part of the Hydrogen Council business group, which forecasts that hydrogen will power more than 400 million cars by 2050.
And this is the final news. This news is very extreme header title. Mentioned that Akio Toyoda would rather die than adapt, and his main concern is that electric vehicle will destroy the Japanese economy. Basically, I think there's a truth in that statement, because changing from ICE to EV, there is the issue of jobs and also the issue of survival as a whole, because a car maker is not employing only their employee, but they need supplier, and supplier also have employee, and many people work in supporting industry of car maker or automaker. So actually it's a chain reaction thing. If the car maker or automaker becomes disrupted, this disruption will go along to the supply chain also. So it comes back to the question, what are the questions of initiating, of sustaining, of redesign, that we will discuss in the next episode. So see you at the next episode. Thank you very much.